What's happening, all you mentees? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition. And today is finally the day that I get to talk about one of my most anticipated omnis this year. And I'm talking about the new Warriors Omnibus Volume 2 from Marvel Comics. So let's get started. Before getting started, I want to thank the folks at Marvel and David Gabriel for sending us an advanced copy of this omnibus. This omnibus is due out on November 29th in the book market and direct market. So what we're looking at here is the actual direct market cover, and this one is drawn by Richard Pace. On the left-hand side is your standard edition cover, drawn by Derek Robertson. And of course, the spines are also different. So that is something that Marvel does from time to time in the standard editions and the direct market covers. But let's shift the focus back to this cover. So here we have the cover to issue number 51. What are we going to do with 14 new Warriors? But I'll be talking about that here in a few. Here you have all the iconic characters, including Sprocket. How does she get on the cover? Fabi Nicieza, Derek Robertson. And of course, Fabi Nicieza, one of my favorite creators of all time. Derek Robertson, he is a phenomenal artist, and this is the first time I ever saw his artwork was through the pages of the New Warriors. Really quickly, before I go any further showing the spines or anything, it is so strange and so surreal to actually have this. This was goal 3. Out of the 5 goals I had when Marvel first reached out to me, getting this book is an amalgam of everything that this channel was, is, and will be. It's the work that I put into it when I didn't think anybody was watching my videos, when I had less than 50 subscribers, whenever it was a group of us, and hours of editing, and for years just... Anyway, it's surreal, and it's finally here. So, let's shift the focus back to this, sorry. So we have a new logo, the New Warriors, that's right. We have a new logo, not only on the cover, but also the spine. And it's not the first time we've seen this, where they changed the logo. They did the same thing with New Mutants Omnibus Volume 2. As a matter of fact, you can see it right there. See the difference between Volumes 1 and 2? Right there. Because the logo changed with the comics, they changed them on the spines as well. So that's what they decided to do here. This is what the new printing of Volume 1 looks like right next to Volume 2. So... iconic image. Oh, this awesome image of rage right there and an awesome story. Let's look at the covers back here that they have. Teen Plus, $125. New looks, new teammates, new wrongs to right. Need to have a little blurb by the Uncanny Omar. This is some of the greatest comics ever. Why do I think so much of this book? I remember coming down here before I started shooting this, and I told my wife, man, I love the New Warriors. And it's such an understatement because this video is going to be so hard to do because whenever I do these overviews, I try to stay middle ground, whether I'm excited about something or whether something is not my cup of tea. You know, I leave it up to the audience to make a judgment for themselves. Sorry, New Warriors Volume 1, we're focusing on this. And it's so hard because these stories mean so much to me. Underneath the dust jacket is something really cool that they've been doing. Lately. It's just these images, and it's the images from the covers with this red tone that they have. That's so awesome, including the classic Namorita cover right there. And of course, New Warriors Volume 2 on the spine. But I'm glad they're doing things like this instead of just, you know, bland logo on black, or just sometimes it's like a spread page, or sometimes it's a splash page. But I like this. This design is cool. Alright, we are going to crack this open, and I promise to be vague, and I promise not to go into spoilers, and not to talk for an hour about this book, but I've been waiting a long time for this. Now, let's crack it open. And opening up this book, the same yellow paper color on the end paper there as Volume 1. Here we have a Derek Robertson piece, The New Warriors, and the credits here of the people that put this together, the writers at the time, the pencilers, inkers, colorists, letterers, assistant editors, and group editors, and the editors themselves during this time. So it all kicks off with issue 27, which is an Infinity War crossover. This issue has been collected before in the Infinity War Omnibus, but it's just nice to have it here. And this particular omnibus collects issues 27 through 53 of New Warriors. It collects New Warriors Annuals 3 and 4, Night Thrasher, the miniseries for Control, the first 4 issues, X-Force 32 and 33, Night Thrasher number 1, the A story 11 and 12, 6 through 7 of Nova, New Warriors Ashcan Edition number 1, and material from Marvel Comics Presents 122, 159 to 163, and Marvel Holiday Special number 2. So glad all of that is included in there. That's some hella mapping on this, because, my gosh, to include those Marvel Comics, I forgot about Marvel Comics Presents 122, honestly, and the slapstick stuff with, because that was after Fabian left New Warriors. So yes, all of this contains the final issues of Fabian y Cieza. Now, New Warriors did go up to issue 75, and there was a Justice miniseries that Fabian y Cieza wrote that was not included in here. So I don't know, maybe one day, maybe we can have the Evan Skolnick era of New Warriors. They were, they tied things to Rom, the Dire Wraiths, and it became a Spider title. Yeah. Not the greatest of stories, but my gosh, for completest sake, I would love it. Alright, so what kind of stories are in here? Well, you see that there is an Infinity War crossover with a doppelganger, so it's first Rage fighting his doppelganger, and then Robbie goes back home and meets his doppelganger, what's his name, Black Ball, I think, instead of Speedball. Yeah, and he defeats him. Derek Robertson, though, coming in after Mark Bagley. Mark Bagley had a long run on the series for a couple of years, but is still supplying a few of the covers. We have the introduction of Turbo, and Turbo's a really interesting character, because at first we meet Turbo, this particular version of Turbo, and this right here is Michiko, or Miki Musashi. And then, later on, you'll see there's a male version of Turbo, and that's Mike Jeffries. And together, they have the same costume. And the costume itself has a really interesting origin story, and I'll leave it at that. That doesn't really get explained until Evan Skolnick's series. And it's really cool that Evan is the one that took over after Fabian left the book, because he was kind of his assistant at the time on New Warriors. So that introduces us to not just Turbo, the character of Turbo, but also this villain named Cardinal, who will play a bigger role later on. And speaking of bigger roles, here we have Night Thrasher, his first solo series. And it's a mini-series after the events of issue 25, where he decides to take a break from the team, leaving Namorita in charge. So we see returning characters like Bengal. Always like this character designs of Bengal. But it's also an appearance of newer characters that will play a more impactful role in the stories to come. And that is the characters of these, what are they called? The Poison Memories or something like that. They're, Poison Memories, that's who they are. They are a gang, like a street gang in New York City. It all ties back to Cord, issue 25, so in order to enjoy this miniseries, you probably have to have read those. But those characters of the Poison Memories will play a bigger role in issues to come. We have a fight with Gideon. Man, if they were making Night Thrasher toys at the time, would have been like Batman. We have a snowboard outfit Night Thrasher. And the series, like I said, lasted for 4 issues. It was a mini-series, and it kind of felt like a trial run to see if there was enough interest in the character of Dwayne Taylor. And there was. Eventually, Kurt Busiek took over the ongoing series. There's a beautiful cover by Joe Mad, but this is the story with Speedball in there. And we get to issue 29, and I feel like issue 29 begins to really encompass why I love this particular series. They're being interviewed by this group of young reporters. This almost feels like an MTV interview. And they're talking about real life events, like why aren't they actually helping out people whose homeland is being destroyed? Why is it that they always have to fight supervillains? And it opens a lot of their eyes. I like this. And immediately, Namorita, who is now in charge of the team, leads them into this big war that is happening. And there are some big changes for these characters. Here's the character Sprocket that's introduced through these pages. She is introduced as their chauffeur. And yes, this is the same place where War and Pieces took place. And there are ramifications of this that changes some of the characters, particularly one of them. Not just mentally, but also physically. And we'll continue through here. And, oh gosh, issue 31. It's going to be hard not talking about every single... Look at that artwork. The details right there on that splash page by Robertson. He was just knocking it out of the park. And a lot of it, too, has to do with his inker, Larry Malstead. So this is the aftermath, pretty much, of the Hellions. Because in the pages of Uncanny X-Men, even though it says from the pages of X-Force, in the pages of Uncanny X-Men, a lot of the Hellions were killed off during Fitzroy's attack in issues 281 and 282 on Uncanny X-Men. First appearance of Bishop, of course. And this is kind of like a goodbye to those characters, because Firestar at one time was with the Hellions. So it's a bunch of these characters coming together to kind of have a ceremony, remembering their old comrades. And we get Firestar has a new costume. The Forces of Darkness, Forces of Light crossover begins here with phenomenal artwork again by Derek Robertson. We have a new character named the Darkling that pretty much has tapped that Dark Force that Silhouette is part of. And we see a lot of characters become a dark side of themselves, including characters like Archangel. So Doctor Strange and Spider-Man get involved. Here's the male version that I was talking about of Turbo. Not the same as Mickey, but I actually really enjoy this. And the way that Robertson draws the Thing is just so awesome. Man, this guy was way ahead of his time. And I like Bagley. And I remember when Bagley left the book in issue 25, I was like, oh man, I don't want a new artist, but my gosh, this guy quickly grew on me. And Black Knight, his Black Knight is awesome. Look at that. Leather jacket years. That's right, baby. This is the character of Darkling, who will later play another big role coming up in issues later. But let's talk about... Oh yeah, this is the first, I want to say, Derek Robertson penciled and written story right here. Tough Choices, featuring, Robbie right there. There's a little side story with Weapon Y. And the holiday special is so sweet, because you get like an inside look to these characters' lives. It really captures this anxiety and almost anguish to how poor some of these characters are. Just because they're superheroes, like Nova has a hard time buying or paying for dinner for his girlfriend. And realizing, wait a minute, I could like do all these things. I could fly around the world, but for some reason, can't afford to buy her a meal. And I thought it was really sweet. The ending was bittersweet. It's the return of Cardinal and his gang right here, as well as Turbo helping them out. So Turbo kind of becoming more and more part of the team. Justice, how he's been hanging out. And this is all setting up things to come with this character right here. That had a one-night stand with Namorita, but it's to get intel, because he's about to destroy the New Warriors from the inside. And yes, as some of you may or may not know from the first volume if you've read it, Vance Astro is of course going to become Major Victory, who's going to lead the Guardians of the Galaxy. But he's not quite there yet, because he is still, well, Marvel Boy, but now calling himself Justice. So this is a story that focuses on him, and then we move on to the attack. My gosh, this is so rough to read. This honestly reminds me of an adult version of, it was a G.I. Joe episode where Cobra learns the identity of the Joes and their families, so they go and attack the families. That's what this is. This is pretty much the return of the Poison Memories. So they launch an attack on the New Warriors, all their family members, including Rage's grandmother. This is Edna Staples. I mean, she is murdered in front of his eyes. Keep in mind, Rage, again, is a kid. He's only, at this point, I think he's 15. He just has the body of a man, but he just lost his grandmother in front of him. And they're kidnapping family members. They're shooting members left and right to get the attention of the New Warriors. And it's all being led by this guy. This is the guy that, again, hooked up with Namorita to get inside knowledge as to who the New Warriors are and who their family members are. So some of them are getting kidnapped, some of them are being shot. It is just such a good and powerful story. This is the character of Carlton. It's Robbie's friend. This is, of course, Speedball. And he wants to become a superhero. He figured out that Speedball, or Robbie is Speedball. And that was through the Darkness Saga. And here he becomes Hindsight Lad. Completely worthless, but plays a big role later on. But, oh, this is such a powerful story. They just want revenge. They want revenge on Dwayne Taylor, Night Thrasher, because of what happened in the 4-issue miniseries, blaming him for what happened. So, everybody gives themselves up with the exception of Rage, who gets a whole new costume. And he's not alone, because now we have the return of Night Thrasher to the team. And him and Hindsight Lad have to go and rescue the rest of the New Warriors. I love this story arc. It continues into the now ongoing series of Night Thrasher. This series will eventually be written by Kurt Busiek. And it wraps up in the story here with a really powerful ending. Then we have the return of this particular character from Xandar. This is the Supernova, who wants the power of Nova, who he keeps calling Richard Rider a thief. Airwalker and Firelord, Heralds of Galactus, get involved, and it's pretty much trying to strip Nova's power away from him, because he feels like he's the rightful heir to that particular power from Xandar. And Namorita going through some changes here, which we'll get to in the next issue, with the return of Justice. And, well, I have to show this cover, though, because I remember as a kid that cover standing out. I'm like, is that not CG? I don't think we called it then. I'm like, is that computer artwork? But no, it's an actual model. They just painted her blue to take this picture. But yes, Namorita, no longer Namorita, now calling herself Chimera. So she returns to the team as a new character and changed. And you can find out exactly why she changed through these particular issues. Then we get to the Child's Play. Oh, the Young Hunt. It's awesome. It's that game that they started in issues of Uncanny X-Men 281 and 282 with the upstarts. So Fitzroy, Shinobi Shaw, Sienna Blaze. Those characters, the Game Master has put them against this group of mutants, right? The people that are in the New Warriors and in X-Force, and they're hunting them down. My favorite part about this is how Cable is throwing shade at Fitzroy, making fun of his 100-year into the future technology. He's like, oh, that's right, by the way, this is techno-organic living tissue. You're not going to have that in your measly 100 years from now. This is 1,000 years into the future technology. I thought that was so awesome. Here's the return of Cyanex, so you have the return of the Mathmanic, you have the return of Impact. Oh, I love this costume. Like, Impact to me was one of those characters that I wish could have joined the New Warriors. Coronary makes a return, Pretty Persuasions, who's the other character? Asylum. That's the other character, this one right here. And this is Cyanex. It's pretty much kind of like their big bad at first. But they're part of this annual right here. And, oh, this is a story with Robbie and his bully. And how he realizes that his bully actually has issues at home. And, you know, he was going to go and pick on his bully for picking on him in school because, you know, he doesn't know he has these powers. And he realizes that, hey, you know, when I'm having it rough, I go and talk to my friends. Chuck has no one to talk to. That was rough. And then, man, Derek Robertson just writing some really deep stories. Like, this is about Angela's friend that is sexually abused at a party. And she feels completely worthless. And I thought that was such a good and powerful story that not a lot of comics were doing at the time. And it reminds me a lot of what Marv Wolfman and George Perez were doing in New Teen Titans, except for the 90s. So with a little bit of an edge. Then we get to the 8-part saga time and time again. This, of course, being the standard edition cover. Oh my gosh. I could do a whole freaking episode on this. Because this is where I think the New Warriors really shine. This is an epic years in the making. With the story that kicked off in issues, what was it, 10, 11, 12, and 13? No, 11, 12, and 13, Forever Yesterday. But time and time again, now you have two Sphinx who know who they are, and they're at power fighting each other. The New Warriors are stranded through time. I love that. So now it's up to Hindsight Lad to form a new team of New Warriors. So, yeah, for example, like Night Thrasher gets thrown into the past in the South. You know, so he's helping a bunch of slaves escape. There's a lot of things that were way ahead of the time here. Just the way the stories were done. This is, of course, Richard Rider back traveling to a time where he never lost his power. Rage, this was a really eye-opener for the character and for people reading this. This is the slave trade, and there's a twist with this particular story. But it's basically the fights against the Sphinx. And meanwhile, while the New Warriors, the main core team, is lost through time, Hindsight Lad has put a team of backup characters together. So you have Power Packs, that's right, it's Alex, the older Powers brother, with the abilities of his siblings, all in one character. Darkhawk, Turbo, who we saw, Dagger, Hindsight Lad, and Bandit. A character that first appeared in the pages of Night Thrasher. This is Dwayne Taylor's brother. And now it's up to them to try to get back the New Warriors. Oh, this is so epic. And while the art is ups and downs, but the Derek Robertson stuff, my gosh, it's just killer. Look at that, man. Brings back memories. Alright, let's get to the final issues. So, issue 51. The final page of the last issue really is a take on X Factor 70. What are we going to do with 14 X-Men now? It's what are we going to do with 14 New Warriors? So they have so many characters on the team. This is also the Mad Thinker. And yeah, this is pretty much the aftermath of that particular story. It's the return of Cyanex. So in the aftermath of Time and Time Again, you know, they have to decide who the team lead is going to be, who's going to stay, and what the future of the New Warriors are going to be. This is Richard Pace on artwork, and it was a lot different than the art that Derek Robertson was doing. But then eventually it did grow on me. And then here's the Marvel Comics Presents issues. This is the one with slapstick right here. So if you read things like Avengers Initiative, this is the story that they're talking about. Oh, what is his character name? The Dr. Yesterday, this guy right here, Dr. Yesterday and the Impossible Man, make an appearance. We do have the Ashcan edition of New Warriors right here. Now, one thing to note is in the story of Time and Time Again, when the character of Night Thrasher goes back in time to this, it's called A Slave to the Past. The dialogue has been changed twice. 2 words have been changed. It's a derogatory term. And I noticed it because I've read that so many times before. And they didn't say anything in the beginning, which they usually do. But then I found this. So there is an afterword here by Fabian Nicieza. Number 1, talking about why he loves this particular run. What it meant to him. And, you know, it's about a group of young people trying to find their truth and through difficult process encountering many uncomfortable truths and lies about the things we believe. So here he talks about the chapters and why they decided to change. And I'll be honest, like for anybody that hasn't read the stories, you're not even going to notice. It's not like there's a black bar on top of it or it's been censored. It's just the word has been replaced twice. Even, I think, people that have read New Warriors a lot aren't going to notice. I mean, unless you've read this, I mean, if you live and die New Warriors, you're going to notice a change in the dialogue. Now, to me, on my channel, I've said before, you know, I'm not a fan when they go and censor things. I get it, and it's hard. It's a fine line to walk because I understand the words, derogatory words, do have a lot of hate behind them. But to me, I think it helps explain why we cheer for the good guys. Because we stand against that hate. We stand against those words. So I had the same issue with, you know, the Chris Claremont God Loves Man Kills Gallery Edition. Even though Chris Claremont explained why, and I respect that. It's his story, his choice. Fabian's story, his choice too. But I like things to be left alone and for historical purposes. That's it. And I understand there's a fine line there. And I understand the people that can't stand those words, so they're okay with the censoring. So, there's still some wrong derogatory terms thrown in there, by the way. But I did want to point that out. And we have some Marvel Age stories back here. A rare photo of both a young Fabian Nicieza and Derek Robertson working together on the book. The introduction, I forgot about this. There was a trade paperback of Darkness and Light. There was an introduction by Ralph Macchio. The Farewell, Uncanny Omar Talk Pretty One Day came this far. I was doing so good. But there's a farewell letter from Derek Robertson from his inker Larry down here. Malstead, who both left the book in issue number 50, and then of course, I will always remember this letter from Fabian Nicieza talking about why he's leaving the book. Not because he doesn't love the characters, not because another thing came open or he was losing interest. It was because it was a change in his life. He had a baby and he needed to make more room and he had to make sacrifices. And New Warriors were the sacrifice. Again, Evan Skolnick was the new writer after this. Here's the Polybag Annual number 2 with the trading card. Love that those are included in there. But that's it. That is all of New Warriors Omnibus Volume 2. I think I try to stay middle of the road, not getting too hyped up, but also giving you an idea of what's collected in here. The book has 1,136 pages. Let's check out this eye right there. Not too shabby. This one printed at the iMac printer. But as I'm sure some of you can tell, paper quality, stick enough, man. Like, not not what some people think iMac is all about the art bleeding through. It's not. Seriously, I didn't notice. I just went back and it's taken me a couple of weeks to reread this just because I love these stories. And it's nice to go back home and revisit them because it does feel like revisiting old friends. But here, normally, you know, with the thin paper, you could see some art bleed through and not here. The way the book folds over towards the beginning. There you go. And again, you should be able to see a lot more, but not really. Towards the back here, promise that is pure coincidence. No offense, Firestar and Silhouette, but I was an Amorita type of dude. Right there. And, yeah, the middle of the book. I didn't have any issues with the book laying over. It's finally here. New Warriors forever. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this book, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this omnibus. Let me know in the comments down below if you are picking this up, if you have Volume 1, if you've never read these stories, if you've read The New Warriors, what you think about this particular series. If a Volume 3 were to come out, would you pick it up? I would love to know all those answers in the comments down below. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section. We are on Spreadshop and Patreon. Phenomenal ways to support the channel if you can do so. And more importantly, all of you stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.